What's up, everybody? Welcome to RiDetroit Weekly. I am your host, Jason Hall, aka the Jason of all trades on Instagram. Man, this has just been quite an adventure. This will be our 4th episode. Every episode is getting better and growing and growing and growing. So thank you for watching. Thank you for commenting. But what I need you to do, getting right into it, I need you to subscribe, man. Keep me out of trouble. You know what I'm saying? For every person that subscribes, that gets us closer to our goals and gives us the ability to give you guys better quality stuff so we can buy better cameras, better microphones, and all that jazz. So please hit that subscribe button and so you don't miss out on anything, all right? Before we get into this week's guest, I definitely want to thank Eric Cedeno, last week's guest, also known as the Bicycle Nomad. Man, what an amazing 45 minutes I got to spend with him. Anybody who can put 45,000 miles on a bike in a decade is definitely worth talking to. I'm going to do a part 2, and we're going to get that out to you guys because there's a ton of questions that people emailed me that I got to ask them, like, how do you prepare not just mentally but physically for a situation like that? So a ton of good questions. Thank you, guys. And I want to thank everybody who did subscribe. We are up to, I think, 30 right now. There will be a little progress bar that we'll be adding. You'll see it right now, right there. Oh, there, right there. That's gonna get to 100. When it gets to 100, we're gonna give away some stuff. So keep subscribing, and keep that line moving. And what's cool is if people subscribe while we're on, you'll actually see that line move. So get in there and hit that subscribe button. All right. Another thing I want to get into, we still at Electric Avenue Bikes, where we do our show out of. We still have a ton of last season's rental e-bikes for sale for great prices. Some of them starting at like $1,400. So if you're looking to get into e-bikes or you want to get your feet wet in the game, this is a great place to start on great low mileage rentals and demos. So if you want to come by Electric Avenue Bikes, 3613 Woodward, come on by. Now, let me get into this week's guest. Without further ado, man, me and Anthony, we go way back. I met Anthony my first time at the Winter Cycling Conference in Minneapolis. And so when I went out there, I had kind of heard about Minneapolis's winters, and I knew about them being heavy into winter cycling, but I had no idea what that really meant until I got to Minneapolis. So today on the show, we're going to talk about winter cycling. We're going to talk about living in one of the bicycle meccas, which is Minneapolis, and we'll talk about their DeQuinder Cut, which actually goes from one end of Minneapolis to the other. And then we'll get into some other stuff, man, because Anthony is my homie. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Anthony Taylor.
Jason, how you doing?
What is happening, my brother? What is happening? You got your coat on because I know you just came from outside. You live out there.
You know what? Is keeping the heat down. Have a vest on all the time. Save a little bit.
When I called you last night, I was joking, but I was like, I know you outside. And you were like, yeah, I was cross-country skiing. Is there a winter sport you don't do?
You know what? There are many that I don't do. I don't skate. You know, I've done it. You do that for fun. But no, I really have committed to just getting people outside year round. So it is just, I learned to snowboard when my kids were coming up. I used to ski, and right now, winter is such a big opportunity, especially if you live here, right? And it's a big opportunity for Black and Indigenous and other brown people, where because they're just going like, we're shutting it down for a couple months in Minnesota. So really that's been the goal. So we do a lot of stuff to get people outside.
Well, so when I started telling the story, but when I met you was at the Winter Cycling Conference in Minneapolis, probably 5 years ago, 6 years ago, something like that. And when I was at the conference that night, we got a snowstorm.
Yeah.
And so that night, everybody was like, yo, we're shutting this down right now. We're going for a bike ride. And I'm thinking, y'all are crazy, right? I'm from Michigan. I'm used to winter. But they shut the airports down that night.
That's right.
Y'all went on a damn bike ride.
Well, one of the things when we started building infrastructure, one of the things, and we owe this to a lot of the advocates here, they actually got a commitment from the city that when that happens, they will do trails first, right? So really, they prioritize bike trails in terms of snow removal. That's one thing. And that really was a big part of it. And then the other thing is that the people who were at the Winter Biking Conference, it was a lot of people, but that group is committed. And once you make a commitment, right, to the equipment for winter cycling, it's easier to get around on a bike than a car sometimes, right? And I think that really, and even in that weekend, people were down. Like that snow made it amazing. And so it was really time to get out and prove that, we were walking the talk.
Well, y'all definitely walked it, and I did not, because y'all were throwing everything at me. Y'all were like, we got a fat tire bike. I was like, I'm straight. We're like, you were like, we got a coat, we got everything. I was like, I'm straight. I'm tired. I just got off the plane. I was making up every excuse not to go out there, man. But when I did go out there, I was just, like you said, amazed at how many bicyclists were on the road. I mean, there were no cars, but everybody was on some type of alternative transportation.
Yeah, no, it's one of those, it's a shift. And, in truth in advertising, that winter was the first time that I actually biked year round. And it was almost a challenge when I was invited to be a part of the committee for the Winter Cycling Congress. I literally said to myself, I have to bike year round. So that was the first time that I had actually biked through an entire winter. And I had about my commute is 10 miles. So it was really interesting to make that commitment and figure it out. I mean, because that's the other thing, everybody knows about biking. You learn the tools of biking, right? You learn the right jacket for the right temperature. You learn which gloves. You figure out, and the biggest thing with biking for winter is you have to have a strategy so you don't overheat. And I don't think people really understand that. Once you're moving, right, you generate that body heat. I always feel like I have a force field on when I'm biking in cold weather. It's just this crazy thing that happens where your body warms up, and your challenge is if you can stay dry, you can stay warm. And those are the things that you really learn from doing it. And you just got to do it day after day after day and get it wrong and then make those corrections.
Absolutely. So that was your first winter. I mean, you have a history. You've been riding before that, but that was your first time committing to riding all year round. Have you pretty much ridden all year round since then? You know
what I do now is I bike until the streets get so narrow that it feels dangerous to me. Because there's some time, especially for me, I do I don't always take trails. I'm that guy who if I can be using non-trails, I do, because it's often faster. And for me, and especially if you have the skills and endurance, riding in the street sometimes is that way. But I think there's a period where here we get so much snow that the streets get narrower and narrower. And so I'll usually bike till then. But then I fat bike all winter. So to me, fat biking is more like an event. You know what I mean? Where you load the bike up, you go someplace. And what we've done a really good job of is cultivating our trail system, our mountain bike trail system, into a fat bike trail system, right? Wow. And that has created miles and miles of opportunity for people who bike to stay active all winter. So, and that's a very different bike. So that's the other thing. When you start looking at your winter commuter, sometimes a fat bike is not the best option. And I think those are the kind of things that you really figure out too when you commit to bike for transportation in winter.
So we touched on for a second I mean, you guys have quite a trail system. When I come back to Detroit, I'm always saying, like, we have the DeQuinder Cut. That is nothing compared to what you have in Minneapolis. I mean, that is literally a fraction. Can you talk about a little bit about the availability of bike access?
Well, you know what? The one thing I would say, Jason, I'll tell you, one of the things that I have learned as an advocate and as a person who I get to work in policy also, is that the decisions, this is the thing we know about biking, the decisions that people make 100 years ago are still with us today. And in Minneapolis, the unique thing that exists here is that in 1888, the founding fathers decided to keep all of the waterway access public. So if you remember here, like our riverfront is still publicly owned. All of the lakes that you and I rode around, all that land on the lakes is publicly owned. So there's no houses and no private ownership in any of those spaces. So that created a 25-mile backbone for a trail system that basically covers a big circle through the whole city. And that was a decision that was made so long ago before people were really thinking about biking, but right before bikes showed up. Then they built a trail system tied to that network of lakes and that parkway system, which gave us a system that went somewhere right now. And you and I know the thing that happens is that many cities are developing trails that don't go anywhere in terms of what's practical for you and I in terms of biking. So with that as our backbone, and it's a 25 mile loop that will take you from downtown back to downtown, right? Then they just started doing these connectors across it, and that really has created the backbone of it. And the jewel of it is really the Midtown Greenway. And the Midtown Greenway is really, again, that's what I think compares to the DeQuinder Cut most in your city. But it's a 6 mile connector, and that's it's a 6 mile connector with no traffic that takes people all the way from the edge, the western edge of Minneapolis to the eastern edge of Minneapolis. And we just committed to continue that Midtown Greenway all the way through St. Paul. So we're going to wind up with a 12, 15 mile stretch of really unencumbered bike highway, where bikes are prioritized. And so that piece of infrastructure laid a foundation for a commitment and a way we can prioritize all of the infrastructure that we have in the city. So that, that one big decision a long time ago was really critical. And now we have more. And I think that, that's really, and you and I rode around while we were here and covered a lot of ground on trail systems. And those trail systems really all connected back to we call it really it's the Mississippi Greenway, and it goes all the way around the city. So I think, that's where we have to push people making decisions to make decisions that really prioritize people. And I think that's really how I start talking about it now. And I go, you can really simply go, does that policy prioritize people, right? And so that's really what we have had going here. But then there's also a commitment to the city's identity tied to green space. So we also have a lot of parks here. So that's the other thing we can dig into is when we talk about a city, what is a city's identity tied to? And that will really tie a lot to the decision-making and how they spend money.
Now, when I was there, we rode, like you said, an entire day one day. And I don't think I crossed a car unless I made the effort to.
That's right.
And I just couldn't believe that the people were so forward thinking that something like that could happen. I mean, what does it take to make something like that happen? Taking it to the people. I mean, how do you even get the infrastructure to agree to something like that?
Yeah, I mean, right now, I think I feel like we have a head start, but I'll tell you something that is really deep. If you really look around the country and you've been to all these places, I'll tell you what, the top cities for, I'm using air quotes, biking in this country, we can Portland, Seattle, Minneapolis, Denver, Boston, Austin, right? Chicago to some extent, right? You can look at those cities and you know what they all are? Is they're all majority white cities with a progressive white population that are actually kind of small. And what we have to do in the other cities is we have to challenge them that even if they are majority Black cities, we've got to get them to prioritize infrastructure relative to the well-being of those people who live there now. Not about attracting the creative class, not about attracting the best and brightest, but how do we do that? And so we have to get our leaders to see that as a priority. And I think right now may be our opportunity because COVID-19 has exposed these disparities in terms of lifestyle and quality of life. And I think that we, even though we don't always tie access to biking to quality of life, I think we can now prove that that is actually the case, because what we're really talking about is a community that prioritizes people, a community that promotes active living, a community that actually makes that infrastructure available to support those commitments to active living. And that's really what it is. And so, I think there's both of those things. We have to get people committed to it. We have to get our policymakers to see it as part of the solution. And how even the city of Detroit came to you, right? Came to you for consulting, right? And guidance on how biking was becoming a part of the identity of the city. What are the things we could do? How are we going to make it diverse, right? Those are the things everybody keeps talking about. And I think that right now is an opportunity to do that, but we have to have the ground level advocates and the policymakers all thinking in the same direction. And I'm telling you, I have learned a lot from Detroit. I mean, as much as you say Minneapolis is the Mecca, me coming to Detroit, I saw an opportunity to connect urban farming to urban housing, to land reclamation, to bikeways, and to not making it about cyclists. And that's the problem we have, that we keep putting out there the same kind of biker, right? That is a cyclist. And again, one of the things I really learned from you was how do we make it not about the bike, but about connecting people back to their own communities, to their own well-being, right, to their own identity and their own health. And when we talk about those messages in community will get excited. If we talk about bike lanes, they don't get excited. If they talk, right, bikers versus non-bikers, they don't get excited. So we have to help them find their way to seeing themselves as part of this movement and how this movement serves the aspirations they have for living well.
The hardest thing for me is when I'm talking to people who, once again, aren't cyclists or don't even tie into what we're really talking about, other than the fact that they live in the city. The hardest thing for me was explaining to people the why of we're doing things. So when we're putting bike lanes in, people always say, well, why are you putting bike lanes? But the hardest thing was the why.
Right.
How do we explain the why in Minneapolis? And how do we say when we say, well, I like so that bike lane in the middle?
Well, the biggest thing I do, and instead of what I do is I usually ask them to tell me what they want. Right? Does that make sense? Like I'm saying, tell me the aspirations you have for your life and your family. And then people say stuff like they want to be healthier. Everybody wants to be healthier, or they want their kids to do better in school, or they want to have more money, whatever those things are. And then instead of talking about the bike lane, I talk about how biking will have value for them, right? And then we have to help them have success with trying to bike. And I really mean this, and I have seen this. If I can get someone to bike 3 times in 2 weeks, I can help them go, damn, that feels good, right? Or, you have to show them and help them realize their benefits. Once they value biking, they'll value bike lanes. That's our mistake. We're trying to get them to value bike lanes when they don't value biking, right? And even you and I, if you give someone a bike and they don't value biking, you know what they got? They got a nice clothes hanger for their garage, right? And so the idea is we have to build the value of biking in the lives of people we work with first. Then the value of bike infrastructure will make sense to them, right? The value of bikes then makes sense to them. And I've done an informal survey with our slow roll program here, where when people start, and we've done this for 3 years, and I ask someone when they first time they go on a slow roll is how much money would they be willing to invest in a bike? And what they say is about $100, right? if they go on 4 slow rolls in a summer through the experience that we've been creating, the amount that they would spend after that is $350, right? And so what happens, and you and I both know, can you buy a good bike for $100?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not.
Unless you know, if you know somebody who's hooking you up, but no.
But no. But can you buy a good bike for $350? Now we're into the realm of reality, right? And if you get someone on a good bike, then the experience they have with biking increases immeasurably, right? A bike that fits, a bike that's tuned, so again, that's what I've kind of learned is I'm working on creating experiences that increase the value of a bike and biking in a person's life so that they then become part of that army that says we need more access, right? We need more bike lanes. And that's really critical, especially with low to moderate income families, Black and brown people. Like that's critical. We have to help them see the value of it first.
No, when I was out in Minneapolis, we went on a bike ride, and at the time we had the nice bikes, and we had taken a group of people out who were just using those bikes. And I remember a Black woman saying, "I didn't even know I could ride on this." And then when we got to where we were going, she said, "I didn't even know I could go here."
That's
and that
right.
was in this millennium. You know what I'm saying? So people have to understand that the bike breaks down more than the physical barriers, but it opens you up to an entire world.
That's right. And that's why I said I'm telling you, learning really simply, riding with you, I really got that the goal of bike rides is to build community. It's not for fitness, right? The goal of a bike ride, you have to design them to reconnect people to their community because cars teleport them in and out. They know nothing except the place they're going and the place they've been. And with historically oppressed communities, especially historically oppressed communities, they are disconnected from their geography because of redlining, because of containment strategies around policing, because of a fear. You know what I mean? Like all those things disconnect them because they live in. And so again, if we use bike rides to reconnect them to their community, to their bodies, to each other, like those are the goals of what we can achieve. And that discovery, like you said, I think it's always amazing to me when people, and that's what I mean. Think about that. When that woman, she had that experience of discovery, right? Like she felt empowered. She was like, damn, and it cost her nothing, right? It didn't cost her any money. We helped her find her way. So that's what I mean by increasing the value of a bike. So now before that, she wasn't down with owning a bike, right? After that, she wanted a bike. You see what I mean? So that's exactly what I'm talking about, increasing the value of a bike in a person's life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm working really hard these days to not only get bikes, I'm sort of coming at this thing with a three-pronged approach. Get bikes into people's hands and expose them to the culture. But then let's go deeper and expose them to actually that there are jobs.
That's right.
within the bicycle industry. That are design, maintenance, and things of that nature. So that's my next step. Then the next step will be ownership. We need to own some bike companies and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So that's do you have sort of a plan of attack or how you're doing things? Because once again, you got your hand in everything. So is it hard to like say, all right, I'm working on this right now, I'm working on this, but I need to focus on this. What is your plan of attack for any of this stuff, man?
Well, I think the biggest, so 2 things we're doing, a couple of things. One is we are, let me say this again. I give all the tutelage to you in slow roll because it changed the way that I viewed what we were going to do with bikes, right? So the way that we've cultivated slow roll here, and squad was an idea, right? Because I saw the camaraderie, I saw the connection. So what we did is we turned our squad into basically an adult earn a bike program. So squad members are recruited from community, that we have a commitment to make squad 80% women. And by committing to be a part of squad, you earn a bike, right? But what they have to do is they have to go to meetings and train, right? So you have to teach squad members how to control an intersection, how to keep people together. And what they literally wind up doing is being better bike riders. But what they really wind up doing is modeling what we're talking about, because representation matters. So this group of 80% Black women, right, who are organizing our ride and doing it, wind up enlisting other people. And when you get women involved, you get families involved, right? And so that was part of it. So that's one thing, how we really want to drill it in the community. I agree with you. We did the same thing. We actually found funding to use a youth bike program to create bike leaders. So we have a group of kids that is going through a national certification program right now through BICP, where they are going to be certified ride leaders. And then our goal is to get them hired by our Department of Natural Resources, teaching mountain bike riding and mountain bike skills in community. And so they immediately see an opportunity around that. And I think you're right. And then getting them connected to bike shops, because once you are doing that, then being a young bike mechanic makes sense to you, right? There's another really cool program that another bike company here, a regional player that we've been connected to with Eric's and with the founder there. There's a new organization coming out called BEIA, and they're going to be looking at a college level program to introduce young mechanics to the business of biking, not just being a mechanic, but the business of biking, so that when they get done, they actually have a sense of being an operator owner as part of their trajectory. And we all know, there's not enough quality bike mechanics in the universe, right? I mean, and so the idea of doing skills and workforce development in a way that is nationally recognized, that they can do in their community, that's more affordable. But again, the key thing is tying them to the trajectory of potential business ownership, because the idea of bike deserts bike shop deserts is a real thing. So we're borrowing language from the food scarcity community, urban food and urban farming around, the fact that they have grocery store deserts. We have the same thing around bike shops, and you can't cultivate a community of bikers without support for it, right? Right. So we need to cultivate small, quality, maybe locally owned bike shops. And if a small bike shop can support a person very well. So again, there are ways where we're thinking about that in terms of the long-term gain and the long-term game around, again, impacting communities at an individual and family level, and then ultimately solving the challenge of bike shop deserts that we have in all of the Black communities that we exist in.
Because I mean, really, now that I think about it, really on the outskirts, like all of our bike shops are literally downtown, midtown, Corktown. There might be one on the west side, and if it is, no one counts that bike shop because they're not, they're off the radar.
That's right.
So, we definitely, people don't think about it as being a bicycle desert, but it truly is.
That's right. No, it really is. And that's what I mean. I think, and again, when we think about the ideas around what we're doing, I mean, it is much deeper than it is. I mean, we are looking at an opportunity to directly fight against years of underinvestment and disinvestment in our communities, right? Which is now we're holding the municipalities accountable. But we also have a thing where people, through their own identity, it's just so easy to say that biking, that's what white folks do. That's right. That's it. Or the fact that we have to reframe the fact that people who can afford a car bike anyway, right? I mean, so I think that's where we're always working in this dual role of impacting community and impacting decision makers, policy makers, and investors. And really the impacts are very, very serious. So that's why we're always trying to have this multi-headed approach of working in the city at an infrastructure and municipal investment standpoint, and also building community simultaneously.
And all of this touches on, one of those hot button topics these days. Everywhere I go, people bring up equity. You know what I mean? No matter what, arena you're in, they bring up equity. Equity is important in the bicycle industry. Okay. And I'll tell you, I learned the majority of what I've learned about equity through bicycling. Can we talk about the importance of equity in bicycle?
Well, so one of the things I do all the time, and I think it's a really good habit, is every time someone says equity, I ask them, what do they mean? Give me the definition of that, right? So that's the first thing, is I always do that, right? But to me, one of the key ideas around equity is redistribution of resources to achieve a particular set of outcomes, right? That changes the conversation dramatically once we agree on that definition. And an example of equity, like to me as an outcome, would be you and I sitting at the edge, and outside, you and I are sitting at a trailhead at a mountain bike facility, right? And we see a biker coming at us, and they have on full goggles, a helmet, and gloves, and they've been biking, and that all we can see is their clothes and their bike. That if you and I were going to win $1,000 to predict that person's gender, would you pick male or female?
Male.
If you were going to pick that person's race for another $1,000, would you choose black or white?
Come on, I'm trying to get paid. Give me that white guy.
Would you pick their median household income of $75,000 or $45,000? Right? Come on, man. Right? Come on. Right. So that's what I'm saying. So equity is erasing the ability to win that $3,000 with certainty. Right. That's when I'm saying about outcomes. That's how I'm really working in. So that means that you and I have to get our cities to overinvest in communities of color, overinvest in communities that have not been a part of the movement so far, so that we can start to equilibrate, right, the users. And that's a really tough thing to say. As a matter of fact, what we're pushing for is every time you do a piece of bike infrastructure, someone has to identify programmatic investments so that we can enlist and encourage community members to use it, right? And that's a really hard stretch because there's dollars for the bike lane, but not dollars to help community members get bikes, right, who don't have them, right? And we experienced that last year, right? You and I know we were working on bikes for essential workers, right? There were no bikes in the universe for the people who decided that they needed a bike in April, right?
Yep.
And the people to it last, the doctors in the hospitals got bikes, right? The people who cook in the hospital and clean the hospital couldn't get access to bikes, right? And that's an equity issue. And again, those disparities have been exacerbated by COVID-19. So now we have something that we can work towards.
Yeah, so our governor went out, when COVID hit, our governor went out and said, everybody go ride a bike. Everybody go get outside. I feel like you might have taken that challenge from your governor a little bit more to heart than most.
Well, like I said, it was easy this summer, but when they shut down everything again in November, right? Everything, they shut down all the health clubs, weather here. I thought, okay, I'll work out inside. Well, so my posts have really been every day. I've committed that I'm going to ride 20 miles a day. That's going to be my bike ride. And I've been doing, it's like I said, it's been interesting because it really just hit us last week. And I'll tell you what, that first 20-mile ride on a fat bike in the snow was no joke. I don't care what anybody says. And
it's like a 40-mile ride because those tires are fat, slow, just slipping around. So 20 miles I'm not doing that.
Yeah, you never gain any momentum. You know what I mean? You never get that rhythm of it. So it was, but I think that's been my commitment is I'm going to use a bike every day throughout winter, either commute or use it as my exercise while there's a shutdown. And I think, we're almost there now. By January 15th, we're on the road home, right? The days start getting longer again. So that's my commitment is I'm gonna get out on my bike every day throughout winter, unless it's an absolute crazy blizzard conditions. But But even then, to get out for a few miles just to keep the trend going.
You won't see me in Minneapolis till spring, brother. You will not see me in here. I mean, I like snow, and I like snowboarding.
Yeah.
But nah, man, I think I finally hit that age where I'm ready to chill on that. But I mean, let's talk for a second about the things that I admire most about you are you're an entrepreneur that is not stopping. You're pushing for the community. But another thing is family, man. You have really laid the groundwork for me having a 6-year-old on what a father looks like. Talk to me about being a father and raising a family. I mean, because all your kids are outdoors, they
Yeah.
all snowboard, they all bike. Talk to people about being a father and raising kids in today's environment in the outdoor world.
Well, I think I tell you what, the biggest thing I start with is being a parent is an honor. It is your kids will teach you more about yourself, right, than any other situation. And I think that it is incredibly rewarding. There's nothing, I think I wrote in my bio one day that nothing brings me more joy than losing bike races to my son, and my daughter being frustrated that she can't ride her bike to school even though she knows the way. I mean, it's like, and I think that if we introduce these activities to kids when they're young, they won't walk away from it. And truthfully, the reason that we don't is because of us, right? Like I think and so we have to see having kids as an opportunity for our own growth. And it really is. And I'll tell you what, my 16-year-old, I told you that he challenged me to grow this year because we've been working hard for him to get on the national scene for snowboarding. He was invited this year. He snowboarded this summer with teams out in Vail. He was invited to travel with the U.S. team to Austria to train in Canada and to go to school at Vail Academy this year. And he decided not to. He decided not to do it. He decided that was not his trajectory, that he was grateful for the invitation, and he decided not to. And you and I know you get a window when you're 15 or 16 to make that leap, right? But I'm telling you, that challenged me. Like I had to dig deep. I had to dig deep.
I was about to ask you as a father. I mean, that's one of those moments where you got to say, wait a minute, hold up, let's put this in perspective, man.
Dude, I'm telling you, that's why I say it made me go, how much of my identity was vested in that, right? It made me go, we've been raising him. He's 16, he just turned 16. And as a young adult, I mean, I don't know if it's exactly the right decision, but when we talked about it, it was a thoughtful decision. He's coaching, under 13-year-olds at a team. He's working as a snowboard instructor, working on getting his Aussie certification so he can teach other people snowboarding. And you know what I mean? It was one of them things. Like I literally had to go, okay, you get what you raise, right? And so I think that's the thing. And I have used having kids as an opportunity to expand my own horizons around adventure, right? So and that's where biking, hiking, snowboarding, canoeing, just being outdoors generally, it's a glue that you and your kids can have for a lifetime. And I'll tell you what, your 6-year-old, the good news is she's not going to be able to beat you on a bike for a while. So guess what? Just think about the ability to do this together. I mean, and I'm just, that keeps you connected. And I'm telling you, Jason, if you talking to her now, just because, is going to give you the foundation for having very serious conversations in the future, because they will just talk. It's like you have to keep them talking all these years. Keep them talking till they're 13 so they never stop talking. It's just a habit. And I'm telling you, on a bike ride, when you're on a bike ride for 90 minutes, or the first time me and my son did a 75-mile ride in the rain, those experiences you cannot, I'm telling you, he was 13 years old and we did a 75-mile bike ride, and part of it was in a tornado. It was crazy. I'm telling you, he still brings that up today, because just like with adults, when you and I ride and we have an experience, that shared emotional experience, it bonds you. And I think that with our kids, those are really the things that we're really trying to do, is stay bonded to them. And that's why I really think that these activities that we're engaged in are just great opportunities. And I promise you, no kid will ever forget the first day he rode his bike without training wheels. They'll never forget the first time they rode. They didn't know it was only 5 miles, but you ride to that favorite place where you like to eat, and you stop and you have something to eat. And you know what I mean? Creating those experiences is really beautiful. And a phrase I use all the time is that motion creates emotion. So when we use biking, it changes the way we feel, and it changes the way we feel together. So I think, that those are the big lessons. And the lesson of biking, in order to get to any destination, the only thing we got to do is never stop pedaling, right? And I think that's just the thing with parenting. Never stop parenting, right? I don't even know, who told you that there's only 3 rules of parenting. Everything you do teaches your child something. You never get a break from it, and you never get a break from it. And
You know what I'm saying?
that's really what it is. So it is, there's no greater honor than being a parent.
Man, I love you, brother. I love you, man. What's up next, man? I mean, what are you focused on right now? What's the next project? Because I know you got 10 of them, but what's the next most important project?
What right now is I'm actively, I just started a role with the YMCA of Minnesota. It's YMCA of the North. And it's an interesting role because it's really beginning to center outdoors as an active living as why the Y exists. We think of the YMCA as physical buildings where you go work out and then they do other stuff, right? Well, we have a vision here that says, what if we make the Y, the mission of the Y, to connect people to outdoors, active living, and being well in the communities that they live in. And fitness may just be one of those parts, but between biking, camping, canoeing, we have an event here called the Ikitarod, which is a winter event, by the way, where it's a winter triathlon, right? Where teams of people do skiing, biking, and use a sled, right? And pull kids on an actual snow sled, like you normally do with dogs, right? But again, creating events that give people a sense of adventure, that connect them to their families, that reconnect them to their bodies and reconnect them to the community. I think that the YMCA is, we're committed to that. I mean, and it's really exciting to look at the next iteration of how we support families to be well, not how we support individuals to be fit.
Well, all right. Well, I got you here before I let you go. You're a bicyclist, and I get, I ride too. And I'm going to tell you a crazy story. Is the first time I ever saw an e-bike was when I was in Minneapolis. I saw a Trek Commuter 8, and I said, "What is that thing?" And so now that I'm a e-bike advocate and
right.
I ride, pretty much e-bike all the time. How do you feel about e-bike and alternative technology?
Oh, I love e-bikes, and I think the 2 reasons for e-bikes is that one, and I think that again, a quality e-bike, the ones that you are selling with with power assist as a foundation, are really important for getting. Matter of fact, I'm working with AARP right now around e-bikes because I believe e-bikes are the magic bullet for getting older adults biking, because that power assist allows you to go at a reasonable pace and you automatically start getting stronger. Like, I think that with a lot of people, the fear of failure is dramatic. And so people walk away from biking because they don't want to fail. But an e-bike allows them to really feel successful even when they're not at their most fit level. It also expands your range in a way that makes it practical to do things you want to do in your life. I mean, I think that you cannot really underestimate the value of that. The other thing that it does is it creates an equal playing ground for couples and families of different levels of fitness. The biggest place where I've seen e-bikes change things is in relationships. I know all these hard charging dudes who the way that they're getting more biking in is they bought an e-bike for their partner. Right. And now they're biking together all the time. And that dude's got a lead out. So I think, it's really one of those things. And when we think about e-bikes as one of the tools to make biking successful for people, to make it practical for people, to make it rewarding for people, is really, really a big idea. And I think that they play a critical role as we look at transportation mode shift as well. Because I think for people who want to make an environmental change, who want to use a bike for commuting, the e-bike all of a sudden makes it realistic for you to do a 10-mile commute. Whereas right now, you and I, most bike people talk about a 3-mile commute. That's not practical. A 3-mile commute is so short that so many people live out of that striking distance just because of the way our country is developed. So now all of a sudden you can do a 10-mile commute and not kill yourself. Dude, now we're talking about it's a game changer. So I think that's the way I use e-bikes, and I'm always recommending e-bikes for people all the time. And the biggest thing is really helping people, afford them. And I think that's where, again, the bike, shops like yours, people that are making bikes financeable, you know what I mean? That are doing, all of a sudden we are making bikes accessible. And a matter of fact, when you were here the first time, we were really beginning to look at financing bikes, because we really know that it was easier for people to buy a $30,000 car because they could buy it through financing with $300 down than to go out and buy a $500 quality bike, right?
Absolutely.
So again, the e-bike now is really a tool for us to help people have those. And the way I phrase it is positive emotional connections to the bike and to biking again. Positive emotional connections to biking. The e-bike is part of that solution.
Brother, this has been just like that. Like I said, these go so fast, just like that. We talked for 45 minutes, and we could talk for another 2 hours, 3 hours, easy. I'm going to save it for when either I come to Minneapolis or you come to Detroit, because that's got to happen soon, man. I miss my family out there. Well, brother, I want to thank you for coming on. Any last words before I let you go?
No, man, I'm just watching you do your thing. I watch, which is really, I get to see it from here. And I just, every day, like, you just have to know I'm inspired, and I continue to be inspired by the work, and we are collaborators in this. So I can't wait to come to Detroit, and we're going to get through this. And the bike is part of the solution, right? That's the most important. The bike is part of the solution.
That's what's up, brother. Like I said before, I love you more than anything, man. You keep inspiring me, and I'll keep inspiring you, man. I'm gonna keep working hard, man, to try to get Detroit on the level of Minneapolis as far as bicycle infrastructure. And I'm gonna keep trying to get everybody a bike, my man.
All right, I'm with you. We'll get bikes. I'll see you in the spring.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon.
All right, man. Peace.
Peace. Thanks, Anthony.
Oh, man. Wow. As usual, giving it to you the best way we know how to. Bringing you quality guests, local and national, international, trying to get you guys as much information as you can so you can move forward. Hopefully you learned a little bit about equity and learned a little bit about winter bicycling, man. It is our time of year. The snow is coming. Get on your bike and ride your bike. Thanks everybody for coming. As usual, I want to thank all of my sponsors. I want to thank Loomis Helmets. I want to thank Griffin Claw Brewing. I want to thank, of course, Electric Avenue Bikes, which is the home of RiDetroit. I want to thank American Cycle and Fitness. Go see those guys, man. They got some new stuff in. Definitely would love to see you. And I want to thank Wingman and Tap Beverages, of course, for keeping us hydrated. And I also want to say Happy New Year, man. This is the last show of 2020. We're going to be moving into 2021, obviously. Our next guest is Adriel Thornton. He works with Mogo, which is our bike share here. So we're going to talk about bike share and the importance of that. And we're going to talk about all kinds of wild stuff because I've known Adriel for a long time. So if you know anything, you're going to want to tune into that one. We also had our last Murals in the Market of the year last Monday, but episodes do live on the RiDetroit YouTube channel, which I would love for you to go watch and subscribe. See the button up there. Please smash that subscribe button so you don't miss out on anything. And with that being said, the 100th person who hits that button will win a prize. I don't know what that prize is yet, but definitely go and subscribe. Thank you, everyone. Am I forgetting anything? Al? Am I forgetting anything? Anthony? Good? Good to go? All right, everybody. That's it, man. See you in 2021. Subscribe.